So, Fyre Festival. So, if you're not aware, disaster of a music festival / luxury vacation experience that happened a couple years ago. 2 documentaries just came out simultaneously. I watched them both because as an event planner and a business person, I find it fascinating. And also as a participant in society in which apparently the whole goal is to make money and it doesn't matter how you do it. I am disturbed and scared for the future. But I think the ultimate cause for this explosion of incompetence was like a deep desire in the heart of Billiard McBrogle to become a legitimate business, to be the business person of our dreams, to be that thing that we talk about, the Zuckerberg, the Steve Jobs, the Jeff Bezos, that thing. Because what, $1 billion sounds real good. Like a penthouse apartment, $250 million, 3-story Central Park address. Sounds like that's what everybody wants, right? Because this guy and so many people around him were sort of play acting at this whole thing. It provides a lot of insight into various things that I have seen be ways that people do business badly. Never all at once in the same situation, but individually I have seen things like this. I was gonna make this a Vlogbrothers video, but it's just too long. And I would love to edit this and do a beautiful, like, Lindsay Ellis style video using clips from the Fyre Festival documentaries, but I just don't have time to do it. So here, my friends, is from the perspective of a small business CEO, several ways that Willie Dargle was an idiot in ways that I have seen before, just not given so much time and money to metastasize. First, and I want to emphasize, this is not all going to be about fraud and being a bad person. This first one is something that people do all the time, and it's not a fraudster thing. You have your idea, and then suddenly your idea becomes 12 different ideas, and you're pitching it based on what you think the version of that the person you're pitching is most interested in. So it's a booking platform and a music festival and a luxury experience vacation package. It's also, apparently at one point, they talked about it being like a year-round creative center in the Bahamas where people could go record music or something. This is a thing that happens where your idea becomes every idea. And that's something to be really cautious of and aware of when you are creating because once you start doing this, there's 2 things that happen. One, you pitch your idea to someone and they pitch it back to you. This happens and is really a useful tool. They pitch it back to you and you hear what they say, and you can do 2 things with that. Well, 3. The 2 legitimate things you can do is take that feedback and say, okay, maybe I'm going to fundamentally change the model of what I'm trying to do here. And that's a big thing to do. Or 2, you can discard that thing that they said and say, that's interesting. I'm going to remember that is the thing that you thought I was pitching you, but that's not my thing. So you can either adopt that perspective or you can discard it. The third thing you can do is lie to them and tell them, yes, that is the thing that I'm doing, because obviously it's the thing that they're more interested in and you are trying to sell them, and so you pitch it back to them in sort of their way, and that is something you should not do. Though it is tempting to do, because ultimately you want them on your team and maybe you can sort of make it seem like that idea to them. Now this can also happen internally, where it's not you, where it's not like someone saying to you, here's what I think your idea actually is. Your mind just starts chasing all of these things. Once you have really fertile ground that you're excited about, it can grow in lots of different ways and can be very difficult to sort of keep pruned. This is very also true of fiction, by the way. I, anyway, have to find ways to keep the ideas pruned so that instead of chasing all of the beautiful ways in which this idea seems wonderful and bigger and sort of having this this idea porn in your head that's very exciting, just chasing all the different ways that this could be cool. Actually, so not doing that and actually like exploring a legitimate business model, making spreadsheets, figuring out if this is possible, doing market research, talking to people who have done similar things and seeing if your idea is crap or not. And in a similar way in fiction, like finding the pillars of the idea and sticking with those pillars and saying, okay, we need these are the actual good parts of this, and nothing can get rid of those. And from there, from that foundation, we can build. And maybe it's going to build us somewhere else, and I'm not saying never pivot, never shift, never think like absolutely in business these days, especially when you have something new, pivoting is much easier, and that's one of the things that is a competitive advantage of a smaller business. But make sure that you are not just like going after everything that seems interesting in any given moment, because then you are not building something that's stable. You're building something that like is in your head the sort of like prettiest thing that you can build in any given moment, or like the sexiest or most interesting or whatever it is that drives you. That's thing number one. This video is going to be pretty long. Thing number two, I hear people say this a lot. I've said this to employees myself. We're in the solutions business. We're not in the problems business. I saw this mentioned a lot in the Fyre Festival documentary, but I think that I saw it like people misunderstand what people might mean when they say this. When I say to an employee, we need to be in the solutions business, that's basically like saying like, that is all the business does. You solve problems. And so when you come to me with a problem, I would like you to also come to me with a solution. What I don't mean is there are no problems and don't come to me with problems. And that, sometimes I think that's what people mean by we're in the solutions business, is like, don't tell me about problems, just be solving. No, like, tell me about problems. I'm your CEO, I'm your boss, tell me about the problem. Also, though, I will love it if you come at me with some suggestions for how that could be solved. Because, look, you might know more about this than I do. You might be smarter than me. Like, I want people working for me who are better at solving problems than me. That's the dream, right? That's what you really want. You want employees who you can pay to do better, to do your job better than you can. So I want you to come at me with solutions. I want them to be good solutions, and I want you to explain to me what the problem is, what level of severity it is, how much it needs to get taken care of, and some ways to take care of it. That's up to me then to decide whether or not your solutions are good, or whether the problem is something that I think we need to solve. And sometimes, like, you come to me with a problem, and like, oh, this breaks the business model. And in those situations, if your goal is to run a business, then you either create a new business model, or the thing stops existing. Like, the business closes down. And if your idea of what being a valuable human being on planet Earth is being a business person, that's an existential identity level threat. That is a threat to not just your business, it's a threat to, like, it can be perceived as a threat to your physical body. And that is why so many people are so viscerally afraid of that kind of problem. It is also why going into business, it is really good to understand that there's value to you as a human being outside of you as a business person. Because otherwise, when someone comes at you with a potential existential threat to your business, it is perceived as an existential threat to yourself. And that makes it very hard to solve problems, and it makes it very easy to go, no, we are not talking about these problems. You do not talk to me about problems at that level, because then you shut down and you don't actually face the reality of the problem that you're seeing. It's very interesting to look at this. Like, there's a very clear sort of two perspectives that you can have after watching these documentaries. One is it's just fraud. It was fraud from the beginning, fraud the whole time, fraud at the end. That's kind of the direction I lean in personally. The other is, like, they thought they were going to be able to do a music festival. Looking at some of the decisions they made, it seems like they did. It seems like they thought they were going to be able to do a music festival. Like, they spent a lot of money. Like, there was a stage. They built a stage. There were a lot of tents that got put up. They bought a lot of tequila. They could have done nothing. They could have had people arrive and been like, aha, we're going to move to some place where they don't extradite to the US, and like that's my fraud, and now I have $20 million. And frankly, that would have been a much better idea. Like, if you're actually a scammer. So I think that there was like in the seed, in the deep down, and I think this is true of a lot of people who scam and who commit fraud, they think that there is something about what they're doing that's actually legitimate, even if it's illegal, even if they are, you know, lying to people, even if they are taking people's money under false pretense. They think that's all part of the game. And it seems to me that, like, yes, this was a fraud, but there was also like, the fact that they bought as much liquor as they did, the fact that they had all those frickin' hurricane tents set up, the fact that they moved to another island at all, the fact that they got a stage, like, that indicates to me maybe that there was some motivation that wasn't just theft, that they understood what they were doing outside of the realm of theft. Some people would be like, they just got in over their heads. No. I think that there was an understanding that they were grifting. There was an understanding that this is like they were playing what they saw as the game, and this is how people get rich, which is just not true. This is how people go to jail. Anyway, number 3, weird micromanagement. Also something I have been prone to in my career as a manager. I apologize to everyone who I've ever done it to. Weird micromanagement for me comes from 2 places. One, it comes from when I really actually want to do the thing. So I really want to like spend a little time designing something because I've spent too much time managing and I just want to do some freaking art. And so sometimes I come in and I'm like, here's what I did, and here's like suddenly like now it's all your job so to like implement my strategy idea for something that probably isn't that big of a deal, but I just want to like feel like I'm having a direct impact. And so it's a little bit of like a desire to get back to doing what I used to do for a living. And then the other reason, which is I think the bigger problem, is when it's driven by anxiety. So you are up at night and you're in a thought spiral and you think that you have identified the one problem that's going to end your whole company, and it's the music in the thing, like the music in the Crash Course documentary, or it's the wristbands at PodCon or something like that. And I just like, I can't sleep. This is terrible. I get up. It's 2:00 in the morning, and I'm like, write out this long ass email that just like it wastes everybody's time, and it's not a big deal. But I am coming from a place of anxiety. That's usually where this level of like super weird micromanagement comes from. When people are micromanaging, so like insight into your bosses right now. When people are micromanaging you on something that you are pretty sure isn't actually that important, isn't actually having like gonna have a measurable impact on the company, but they are being very specific and sort of weird about it, it's because they're scared. And like managers and bosses are scared all the time. It's a scary job, and it's a job that you can lose, and it is also there are a lot. In a lot of circumstances, there are other people who are sort of jockeying for that position and for the next position, and so they are trying, like sometimes people get caught in thought spirals and then they weirdly micromanage, and it's bad management, and I try not to do it, but to everybody who I've ever done it to, I'm sorry. 4, a marketing plan is not a business. Fyre Festival obviously had very good marketing. In this situation, like it's very hard for me to get away from the idea that like this marketing was just about fraud. It wasn't about selling tickets to an actual thing. But I've seen this done without the intent to fraud. Marketing is such an intrinsically important part of a business. Like, does not matter how good your product is if you cannot get people to find out about it. If you don't have a way to tell people about your good product, you cannot sell it, and it doesn't matter how good your product is if you can't tell people about it. Like, it's something that I think about all the time with all of the stuff that we do. How do we get people to find out about it? What is our competitive advantage? And how does marketing interact with product? You cannot have one without the other. Usually the problem is that you have product without good marketing, because most people who are in business are product people. But you can also have the opposite problem, and it seems like less of a problem because money starts coming in. If you have really great marketing and not a great product, that seems like you're winning. in a way that having a really great product and not great marketing does not seem like. That seems like losing, because marketing is where the money comes from. Your business idea is not a good idea unless you have both. You know, it's remarkable to see situations where you have really great marketing and not a great product. I think that those are really interesting examples to examine, because then maybe that leads to opportunities for really great products to figure out better marketing. Number 5, this is another thing that I agree with fundamentally. Like when we were talking earlier about like we're not in the problems business, we're in the solutions business. The way I understand that sentence, I'm totally okay with. I am also totally okay with this sentence. Fake it till you make it. But like some people think that it means pretend until a miracle happens, I guess. To me, and I do this to my employees, and I think that it's good for the company and for them. I say, do this thing you've never done before. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But like, I'm gonna throw you in the deep end right now, because I've been thrown in the deep end a lot of times in my career, and that is when I've learned the fastest and the most. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with like learning on the job and not like in a structured training environment, just being like, it's now your job to figure out how to make this thing that you don't know how to make. Go make it. It's now your job to try and figure out how to market this thing. I know you're not a marketer, but like that's gonna be part of your job now. To me, fake it till you make it means like you are sometimes gonna be in a situation where you are less comfortable and you feel less capable, and those are often the situations where you increase in capability the fastest. That's okay. Like you can't learn to swim if you're not in the water. And it's really about finding the difference between I don't know how to do this and I actually cannot physically do this. And sometimes that's not like a training thing. Sometimes that's an idea problem. Sometimes that's a product problem. Sometimes it's a market problem. It's not always a person problem. But like, no matter what, when you are in a situation where you're uncomfortable, sorry to say it, that's where you learn the most. And that's what I mean when I say fake it till you make it. Like, you are going to have to come into this as someone who is not an expert and pretend that you are, because like, this is how expertise gets built. You don't become an expert by reading a bunch of books. You become an expert by doing it. Apparently, some people think fake it till you make it means you need to fake success until you. That's not what I mean. I don't think that's what anybody meant. But it is how like the hustle culture world, like get an expensive watch and rent a Lamborghini and like use your investors' money to get a really fancy office. That like you're faking success with the thought that like if you embody it, it will occur. That's just magical thinking. I really hope that's not what people meant when they said this sentence, because I've been saying it for a long time, and if that's the case, then I've been a jerk. No, fake it till you make it means sometimes you gotta try to bite off more than you can chew, because you don't know how much you can chew until you try. And if you do it with the goal of learning and getting there in the process, then you are bettering yourself, which is good for everybody. But if fake it till you make it is like, try to look real cool so that people will think you're cool, which was the whole goal of starting a business, I guess, is status and prestige, then don't fake it till you make it. No, don't do that. Go get a Honda Civic. All right, the last thing I'm gonna talk about is sort of the closest to this idea of like, we're not in a fraud business, we're just in the business. If you think that your business is more important than your customers, that is idiotic. It is pure idiocy. It makes no sense. You might say it's like putting the cart before the horse. It's not like putting the cart before the horse. It's like removing the cart from the horse and then galloping off to your destination and then arriving and being like, where's all the stuff? I got here so fast, but like, why didn't all the stuff come with me? You disconnected the cart from the horse. It's back where you left it. Now look, I understand that if you're a Fortune 500 CEO, there's like business of business stuff that I don't want to understand. Finance and all that crap that I just don't give a shit about. But like the vast majority of business people are not going to be one of those people. and should not model themselves after them. For us, for people who are running or might run normal businesses that have between, 1 and 100 employees. Your job is your customer and your employees, and also if you have investors, your investors. I hope you don't have investors. It's a pain in the ass. Business is not the end. It is not the goal. It is not the thing you are trying to achieve. It is the thing you are using to achieve the thing, which is to solve a problem for your customers or make them happy or whatever. Now, the assertion that I saw several times in these documentaries that this was all some kind of like inevitable outgrowth of millennial culture, that there's a grifter in the White House and we were raised with Mark Zuckerberg as a hero and a goal to work toward, and then the financial collapse happened and so we all had to figure out how to make our way and we're gonna do it through theft. That's just a bunch of turds placed into a mesh bag and then spun around. Complete bullshit, and I hate it, and fuck it, and don't ever say that to me again. I yelled at my computer. Maybe there's some element to this guy latched onto a certain idea of what a valuable human being was. Maybe that is a more common idea now than it once was. Maybe we need to reform the idea of what a valuable human being is. But this fucking idiot is an idiot. He's a scammer and he's a thief and he has got some serious self-worth issues. I think absolutely that status and the chasing of feeling like a valuable person drives a lot of people into business. It is the fuel that a lot of people burn to work late nights and to get work done, and sometimes that is done toward a good end that serves the economy and their customers and their employees and their investors and society at large. But business is not champagne parties. Business is porta potties. It worked out surprisingly well, not on purpose. Running events is figuring out how many people are going to be in a room. It's badging and security and staffing and just it's hard. It's work, and it is logistics, and it is details. And after you're done, when it goes well, I personally don't get drunk anymore, but I used to. And it does feel really good, and it does feel like a sense of accomplishment, and I do love the things that me and the teams that I have worked with have gotten done over the years. But business should not be about prestige and status. So talk to me about business when your goal is making people happy, solving people's problems, not, fucking luxury penthouse bullshit. And I'm much more proud of what I've done than I am interested in participating in that fucking system.